Sometimes love isn't enough. As an adoptive mom, people would often say this to me, as if to imply I couldn't love my son enough to change behaviors or heal his trauma, so I should probably just give up. At least that's how I took those four powerful words, which had buried themselves deeply in my mind, leading me to doubt my ability to parent my child. Sometimes love isn't enough. That is the truth. Oftentimes, you need love and powerful, personalized tools to raise a child who's experienced trauma and disrupted attachment, or a child who you're struggling to connect with. I am on a mission to help parents raising kids with a tricky past to show up with unconditional love and practical tools to lovingly manage even the most challenging of times. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Plus, if you like what you hear, I'd love for you to leave a review. Now let's get to the good stuff. Welcome back to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. I am your host, Angie Grandt. And for today's episode, I actually want to talk about how we parent and what we fight against when we're trying to decide what's best for our kids. I know that I myself have had the thoughts and the experience of really wanting to reflect on how I was parented and to try to make conscious decisions about how to parent my own kids. We all have had hopefully good and not so good experiences in our childhood, things that ultimately conditioned us and perhaps created who we are today. We had beautiful relationships that were empowering to us or helped us be our true authentic self, helped us feel lovable and worthy. And perhaps we've also had experiences that made us question whether or not it was safe or okay to be who we are, or experiences that left us feeling like we don't have power or choice over what's happening in our own life. This is the common human experience because when we take a step outside of our circumstance, outside of what we are living every day or what we've experienced when we were younger, at the end of the day, we're all human. And as you've been listening to me drop little pieces about our unique human design, the idea with human design is that we're all born with this energetic blueprint of who we're meant to be. But our parents don't know that. Society doesn't know that. Perhaps you're, as a parent now, as you're listening to this, you've looked up your kids' human design and you're trying to understand them. But even when we fully know and embrace and are stepping into our own design and showing up for our kids based on their unique needs, we're still human, living a human experience and having our own energy. So even in the most perfect of circumstances, if we could shift all of our words and all of our actions to meet our kids' unique needs, we still have our own energy that we're influencing them with. For example, as a generator mom, and both of my kids are projectors, I know that I was very intentional about the way that I speak with and spoke with my kids. I was very mindful about the sense of empowerment that I was giving them. But I'm a generator with generator energy, and I can't and don't want to control that. It's part of who I am. But just being in their presence had the power to influence their sense of self. So, as I was thinking about this episode today and talking with you about that experience, I thought I could go through stories about, my own childhood and ways that I felt so disempowered, or ways that I felt so completely loved. But really, I wanted to spend this episode today really talking through that experience for you, really talking through what you've experienced, why you've experienced it, and the power that you have as mom or dad or grandparent or caregiver to do different for your kids because we can't change the past. And when we understand our human design, we start to see that our past perhaps was part of our path anyways. We start to see evidence in our own design that the things that we experienced, the good, the bad, and the really ugly, that perhaps they were part of the lessons that we were here to learn from others anyways. I know for myself, coming to this realization that some of the really, really ugly, ugly things that I experienced in my childhood, in my young adulthood, and even more recently as an adult and a mom, that the things that I've experienced were part of the lessons that I am here to learn about the human experience, part of the lessons that I'm here to learn to then use my gifts to share what I've learned with you through storytelling. My hope is that as you're listening and hanging out here with this podcast, that you start to have these awarenesses too. Because when we live in that negative experience and let the energy of it hold us down, hold us in a place where we can't take action. We can't see possibility. We can't tap into our creativity. Well, then we're not doing our part to learn the lesson that we were meant to learn. None of us are designed to have an easy peasy, lemon squeezy kind of path in life. We're all designed to experience challenges so that we can grow and learn. We're not designed to suffer, but we are designed to experience challenges because it is in those challenges when we can take a step back and really reflect on what was I here to learn? What was I here to learn about other people, about the different centers in our design, about different energy types, about different profiles? What was I here to learn about the human experience so that I can tap into my gifts? I when I think about my design and what I'm here on this planet to do, I have a couple of we all have very unique gifts, but a couple of the things that are part of my path to serve you are I am a generator, so I'm here to do work and love work that I do, but I'm also I also have the gift of sensitivity. I was sharing with a client earlier that growing up, this I now see it as a gift, but growing up, this extreme sensitivity to others has created a lot of pain and distress for me, honestly. I feel what people are feeling in a way that if I hold on to that, it it's exhausting and it's painful and I take it as my own. But when I started to learn my design and learn that, well, that is a energy of me that I have this beautiful ability to be sensitive to what others need and are experiencing, and I have the power to let it go because it's not mine. It's mine to experience and learn from, but it's not mine to hold on to. Those feelings that other people are feeling, they're for them to feel. It's for me to learn from what they're feeling. It's part of one of the bigger parts of my purpose on this planet is to really feel and sense what other people are feeling and to reflect it back to them in a way that helps them make the change that they're here to make. I also have this gift of seeing patterns, seeing things that aren't working so hot and to disrupt them. On the flip side, of course, that also means I have this um I have it in me to get stuck in patterns. And when I'm not in my highest energy, when I'm not working from a place of service, I can really get stuck in patterns and see that as the only way. Both of those are part of me, and I have the power over how I interact with life based on that. So when I think about these parts of me, and we all have them, we all have these beautiful parts of us that when we have an awareness of them, we can use it for good instead of letting it drag us down. But when I reflect on these gifts that are part of me, they're things that when I used to reflect back on my experiences as a child, my experiences of feeling abandoned and feeling like I was unlovable, well, I now have such a greater awareness of one, I'm not responsible for anybody else's decisions in life. I know that long before I learned about human design, but having that ability to really sit in what I am responsible for, what I get to have full control over, which really ultimately is my own thoughts, feelings, and actions. I have zero control over other people's thoughts, feelings, or actions. I can have influence over what other people are doing and saying and feeling, but I don't get to have any control over that. And coming just to that awareness has been so freeing because when I have the ability to look back at the way that I was parented and to really say their choices as parents, parenting me and my brother, it actually had nothing to do with me. They were operating with their own energy, which was also conditioned by their parents and their upbringing and their teachers and all of the experiences that my parents had. We're all in the same experience together, and we tend to look at our experience as if there are other people in our life who they're, how do I say this? Like, I think that we tend to look at other important people in our life as if their purpose is to serve us, that their purpose is to make our lives happy. But although we all need each other and relationships are so incredibly important, my gosh, it's what I'm here talking with you about is the importance of relationships. But each of us are here to really step into who we are because that is how we build relationships. That is how we connect with others. When we can first connect with ourselves, then we have the capacity to really connect with others in a meaningful way instead of trying to force it in ways that we feel like we're supposed to because of the way that we were raised. So when I think about that dynamic of wanting to almost fight against the way that we were parented, I think, oftentimes when we're parented in a more of a like lackadaisical, hands-off kind of parenting way, we tend to become the kind of parents who are more of a helicopter parent and vice versa. If our parents tried to exert total control over everything that we were doing, we tend to be more lackadaisical. If you watch parenting trends through families, you'll see that shift. And of course, there were generational things that were happening that, if you look back 100 years ago, parenting as a whole, was different than it is now because of what society needed at that time, and also because of the energy of society, right? 100 years ago, that structure and routine and systems was necessary, which meant your kids really had to be in line. And 100 years ago, 200 years ago, families were really indoctrinated to believe that there was something outside of them that had influence over what they were supposed to do. Where now, our energy really is shifting and we're learning to trust ourselves and learning to trust what's best for us and for our family. So back to, making that decision to perhaps reflect on how we were parented. I really, I really encourage you as you're listening here and hopefully taking what we talk about and applying it to your life. taking what we talk about here and really trying to figure out, why am I sharing this with you? What are you supposed to take away from this to move yourself towards a place of acceptance and loving yourself? Because at the end of the day, we need to feel loved and empowered and accepted for who we are. But that feeling of really believing that we deserve love, that we have control over our own life, that feeling does not come from the outside. It doesn't come from anybody else but you. You get to make a decision that other people, even our closest family members, but other people also get to decide to do what they feel is right for them. But if I'm being super honest, most of the people in your life are probably making decisions based on their conditioning, based on what they think society wants them to do, or they're operating out of a place of fight or flight mode, trying to react to what life is throwing at them because they don't have the tools to take a pause, take a step back, and really reflect on what is true and right for them. So I implore you to take a self inventory, and not in a beating yourself up way. That is definitely not my intent with this, but to take a objective look at yourself and the thoughts that are running through your head, and really reflect on, where does your sense of lovability come from? Where does your sense of needing to parent differently come from for you? Because when you can really identify, perhaps a story that it's tied to, or a sense that you are feeling inside, and really starting to really step into trusting your gut, when you're able to pinpoint where that came from, well, then you can do something about it. Then you're not victim to that feeling of feeling like perhaps something was missing in your childhood that you need to recreate in your own kids. Because as parents listening to this here now, you get to choose how you want to parent, and you get to choose if you do it in a way that you're fighting against what you had, or if you instead say, you know what happened happened, and my parents probably didn't know any better and couldn't do any better. They were doing the best with what they had. And I choose to tap into my intuition. I choose to approach parenting knowing that I want to create a strong foundation for my kids that is built on them trusting that I love my kids no matter how they behave, no matter what they say, no matter what they do. I want my kids to know that they get unconditional love from me. You get to choose as a parent to empower your kids or not, right? I think, back when I was a kid, I think my dad did a great job of encouraging us to be independent thinkers. But in some of the um, kids around me, I didn't see a lot of that. I saw a lot of parents really trying to make decisions for their kids and not trusting that their kids knew what was best for them. I think my dad did a great job with that. But as parents, we get to choose whether or not we want to dictate how our kids behave or empower them that they do know what's right for them most of the time. Of course, we have to keep them safe. When they're little, it's our job to keep them safe. But I can say, as I keep really reflecting on this and taking action towards empowering the kids in my life, I am blown away at what kids know is right for them at a very, very young age. And what kids know is right for them is often different than what their parents think is right for them, which can be a hard place as a parent when we think we know what's best for our kids. And I'm not saying that you don't, right? Trust your gut, but What would happen if you allowed them a little bit more space to choose what's right for them too? Would they come out feeling more empowered as young adults and older adults? I also, we also as parents really get to choose how we help our kids feel valuable, how we help them feel like they belong. And again, we can't make them feel valuable. We can't make them feel lovable. We can't make them feel like they belong. But we sure as heck have a lot of influence over the way that we show up for them. We have total control over our own thoughts, feelings, and actions for our kids. And the way that we show up for our kids matters. And I know you know that as you're thinking back to your own childhood and the way that your parents showed up for you. Your parents didn't get to decide how you think and feel. And we also know that to be true because if you have siblings who had the same parents that you do, we know that we all have very different responses to parenting. My brother and I had very different reactions to the way that we were parented, which resulted tragically for him and resulted in me really being who I am here for you and really taking those lessons that I learned and really exploring them and trying to understand them. Because energetically, my brother and I, very different. So we experience those things very differently, which tells you that your experience, although it's real for you, those feelings are real, they're not a fact, which means you get to decide to do something to release that bad emotional energy from the stories that you carry. So that is where I want to end today, is to really encourage you to reflect on the way that you were parented, not in a beating yourself up or questioning your lovability, but to really look back through a lens of curiosity about what was I supposed to learn? Or I'm so curious why my parents parented the way that they did. Is it because they were trying to undo the way that they were parented? Or were they trying to do the leniency to the strictness pendulum swing that we all tend to do? What is it about the way that you were parented that has created a story in you that makes you want to fight against it? Because that story, you have the power to change. So if you don't know how to change that story, if you don't know how to get rid of that emotional energy that's tied to your story, I'd love to connect with you. I have some pretty powerful tools that I use with my clients to help them really work through and get rid of that negative energy in a way that is so empowering and helps set a stage to start tackling life in such a different way. So that's all. Thanks so much for hanging out, and we will talk soon. I hope that you found this episode so incredibly powerful. Thank you for joining us for Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. If you resonated with what you heard here, please subscribe to this podcast and give us a review. You can also follow us on all the socials. Check the show notes for all the details about how to start tackling behaviors and creating a powerful, loving relationship with your child, a child who needs your love the most. And if your gut's telling you that it's time for a change now, book a free consult. I'd love to help you love unconditionally and show you that you have that power within you.